Hello again, and a very good evening to you, and a very warm welcome to our little weekly podcast called Sweet Omagh Town Internet Radio. My name is Don McGurgan, and hopefully we'll be joined by my co-host Declan Ford, somewhere near Mountfield. Good evening, Mr. Ford. How are you today?
Hello, Mr. McGurgan, and how are you?
Oh, no, it's Thursday, isn't it? It's Herald Day.
Aha.
It was Con Day
Friend of
yesterday.
mine, in the 1970s, Thursday stood out for three things: Herald Day, Bin Day, and NME Day. That was the New Musical Express, I think, came out. Either that or the Melody Maker. So that was the only things that kind of set aside an Omagh on a Thursday for him. Imagine lumping the Herald and a musical paper and a bin.
Well, the nearest to the time we got was Ireland's Own, and the Sunday Press on a Sunday. And
we got the Sunday News.
Down Your Way. Was that what it was? And there was a couple of other articles in there. So Angela McNamara was the agony aunt. Remember her?
I'm sure you I bet you had her tortured every week.
Every week. Oh, yes. God forgive me.
She was no dear Frankie.
No, she was not. No, I know.
Oh, I know, of its time. For goodness sake. I actually got a good publication 2 years ago. It was based on magazines from the 60s and 70s, and not Spotlight, but pretty much in that vein. And when you actually looked through these images and the photographs and the letters, Lord, it was an innocent time even then.
It was. It really was.
Lord, it was surely. And to be serious about it, you think of the agony of some people writing in to an agony aunt with their problems. Like, things must have been at a pretty low ebb when they had to do that.
Yes, I know. Well,
but there was no outlet.
There wasn't really, Declan. No, seriously, there wasn't. There wasn't that community support, or people didn't want people to know. People were embarrassed about things or afraid of things.
Oh,
and I suppose it's a bit like, you step forward and you can see so much now on the internet and books. You can books in any subject you like now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think we are more enlightened.
Well,
maybe we don't use that enlightenment as well as we should.
No, probably not.
But we have the access to be more enlightened.
Yeah. Funny, I'm reading a great book at the minute by a Hungarian guy who's actually, he was born during the just after the Second World War. His mother was a Jew, and his grandparents were killed in Auschwitz. And he's a Canadian doctor now. He obviously lived up in Canada. And he writes an awful lot about addictions, and we all have some form of addiction, whether we like it or not, be it to the internet, to retail therapy, alcohol, smoking, drinking, gambling, whatever it is. And he keeps saying, don't look at the addiction, look at the pain, look at what's wrong in your life, and try to rectify that. Fascinating book now, must say. It's part of the course that I'm doing. I have to read this sort of thing, but great book, so it is, really is.
Very good.
So much for that, but...
what is on the agenda tonight?
I'm taking you round the streets of Omagh tonight, Declan. I'm taking you for a walk around the streets. A wee dander up and down the streets of Omagh. I bet you... I couldn't do it myself. If I was to ask you to start maybe somewhere around the swinging bars and start naming the businesses, pubs,
right,
halls, retails, cafes and stuff, from here to John Street. I don't know anybody who could be able to do it as well as this chap did it. And we're talking about the late Seamus Gallagher.
Oh, yes. I remember the interview well.
Well, do you? Because it was early 90s, and I'll tell you how I got to know Seamus. When I was a good living young man, on a Monday night, I would go down and help the parish priest count the money for the parish. Right. And Seamus was one of the counters there, and I remember him very well because I would open the envelopes and he would count it. And he got big long touch, maybe about 100 figures, and he'd just go, and he just... You talk about a calculator, he just had it in abundance. That form of education that he had. And then he and I would head up to McGinn's with all this loose change and trade it in for paper notes for the Reverend Father for his little weekly collection. And we kept nothing.
I've no doubt they searched you at the end of each session.
I must say now, right now, that It was an honour to do it. No, Seamus was a great guy. And I asked him to do an interview for us around that time. Must have been early 90s, I think. He was
Right.
reluctant enough to talk about it. But Seamus owned a shop, in John Street. I'm not sure if any of our listeners, maybe you can help us out here.
Yeah.
Seamus Gallagher. He lived, is that Homeview Terrace, I think it's called, the last house near the Bank of Ireland. And I think there's an architect or somewhere has an office there. All those houses are all.
That's right. That's right.
Seamus, and he had two sisters. I think one was Ailish.
She was involved in social services, I believe.
I think she may have had an MBE or an OBE or possibly both, Declan, from memory. Yeah.
She's a very nice woman. A very, very nice woman. Yeah.
And I don't think either three of them are married. They may have other brothers and sisters that we know nothing about. No.
Right.
Except we don't even have a photograph of them.
There's something in the back of my head about the post office, and I associate Seamus Gallagher with the post office now. Whether it was his father.
I have a notion. I notion their Derry City family, and I think they may have came to work on them, and that could have been what they said. The father may have worked in the post office. Now, if any of our good listeners remember these people, please send us a wee text privately if you wish, or just even mention it on the feed as well, because you and I don't know. But there were three in the family that we knew of, and that was Ailish, Bernadette, I think, and then Seamus. I don't think either of them were married, so I can't see any extended family that I can get even a photograph of, or even to tell them we have this interview. So it's sad that that we've lost track of people like that over a very small number of years.
Well, that's it. Look, that is the passage of time, but but there is something in the post office that it's there in the recesses of my mind.
Yes, and I think the shop was. I was talking to a friend of mine today about this, and we think the shop was near where. Do you remember Plunkett McCusker had a butcher's up in John Street?
That's right.
Opposite McGrade's chemist there. Somewhere around there, I think Campbell's or Gallagher's had a shop. I know there was the ice cream shop the other side of the street now. I don't think they were related at all.
And then did Plunkett McCusker do medals and trophies?
He did. Was it on the spot trophy or something, wasn't it?
Is that it? Yes.
I'm not sure what the name was, but some of those things. Yeah, he did trophies, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And
then, do you remember Sally's Boutique was around there as well?
That's right, indeed. Oh, I remember.
And then there was a Sally's Barbers, was there not?
That's right, Kieran Sally had a barber shop there in John Street.
Kieran Sally, that's right.
And then families lived there, McGinty's lived there. And and Wilson's had a shop there in John Street. And then Art Kelly, the chemist, had a business there in John Street. And Frank Mullen, the vet, lived in the corner about where Pat Fahey's office came later years. But there's lots in between. But I tell you what, Seamus will take us around a walk around the town of his time, and you'll enjoy it. And feel free to join us and tell us what he's left out or what we've left out, because it's very interesting to see the changes of Omagh over through the years as well. So.
I mean, he had a remarkable memory.
Absolutely.
And I also seem to recollect that when you and I attempted to butt in with a question, he would brush us off as though we were in his way. In his mind's eye, he was walking along the streets.
Indeed, he was. Yes. And to add to that, I have one of Marcus Pickett. Maybe I mentioned this before, and Marcus was about Omagh before partition now, before the 1920s. So it's a very good interview as well. It was done with the late Dr. Mitchell. And likewise, he told Mr. Mitchell just to hold it there. I'm talking here now, and I'll tell you who was where and what was where. And the thing about it is, I'm going to leave these exactly as they were spoken, because it's the genuine way. It's the Omagh way. We say what we think in this town, and we don't take any prisoners. But it'll be nice to listen to again now.
Oh, good. I look forward to that.
Well, you are. So, and I suppose he says, is it getting to look a lot like Christmas with you?
Well, sure, every day is Christmas as far as I'm concerned, Yes, I think it is, but look, we will make the best of it.
Absolutely.
And not listen to the naysayers at all.
Not at all. Look, it'll come and go. It's another day.
It's another day.
All right.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's a construction.
It is. I would always say it's 2 Sundays in 1 week.
That's it.
Pretty much.
That is it.
Really.
But it's amazing, when you think of that whole Christmas image, it's so American.
Yes.
It's like Halloween. We've become Americanized with chicken or treating.
Yes.
And I wonder for how many people Christmas begins once they see the Coca-Cola ad with the horses going through the snow.
Yes, yes.
You know.
Yes.
So I think we have somehow lost
I've
perhaps
lost.
the
Yes,
real
I have lost.
meaning of Christmas.
It's that lull in between Christmas Day and New Year's Day, Jack, where you go into sort of a stupor where you don't know what day it is, you don't know what time of day it is, and you're eating turkey sandwiches when you should be in your bed.
Exactly it. Or it's like the Johnny Cash song. You don't know whether it's New York or New Year.
No, actually,
Yeah.
I love the New Year. I love the 6th of January. It's my favourite time of the year. Because
Right.
that's the whole New Year. That is the sort of the feast of the three wise kings, and it's to me that's the real Christmas day. And when that comes, I feel the New Year has started. The days are going to get a little bit longer.
Yes.
And we're making a new start, and the decorations come down, and it's a fresh
that's
start.
it.
So
That's it.
6th of January, Jack and I shall be all bells and whistles.
You should be in good form for once.
Once a year.
You're one day of the year.
One day when I
Joy.
can smile. All right. Okay. Anyway,
well,
on the subject of
I
misery,
suppose
on the subject of
do it,
misery,
get it over and done with.
on the subject of misery, how's your book doing?
And the book is doing relatively well. You
Good,
know,
seriously.
it's out there, and we're plugging it. It's available up in the what had been Colton's shop, up near the where the old Highland Cafe was,
Yes.
and it's available in Boneyard Records and in Peter McBride's
Well.
Emporium.
Yes.
In Mullaghmore and the Gorchin Road.
Right.
And also it's on the Brothers website, the old Christian Brothers, where I taught. And they were very kind to put it onto their Twitter feed and Facebook and the website.
Do you do Apro?
Apro?
Yes. Try before you buy.
Is that anything like rap?
Why I'm telling you this, because I have given the book to a visitor called to see me yesterday, and I was sort of endorsing this great book, and she says, you know what I'll do? I'll take the little book home and I'll read it, and I'll play the CD, and if I like it, I'll pay for it.
You fell for that old trick.
It's not my money. I promise you, Mr. Ford, every book I took from you, I will pay for. So
Don't you worry.
Don't you worry, I know. It'll be all right.
I have a note. I know exactly what's going out.
Absolutely.
No, it's still available, and it would be an ideal Christmas present. Very handy to post to relatives, because the post is somewhat erratic now with the times that are in it.
Yes.
And the post is also gone up slightly if you're posting to the States.
Yes.
You know, but I would say post early. You know, so but the book is still available out there
All right.
in the great beyond.
I've got to mention Father Darcy's programme as well, I believe.
He did indeed. He did indeed. He recited one of the poems to Ferner Carroll.
Good for
In
him.
fact, this year's Christmas poem, I'm going to work on it this weekend. I'll have it finished, and then I shall be posting them out.
Yes. Tell you what we'll do.
Don't sound so enthusiastic.
Rather, why don't we put one of your little poems on tonight? I know we haven't rehearsed this and we never do. So I'm going to put you in a spot and say, can we use one of your little poems or part of your little poems tonight to let the good folk hear this? Or
Oh,
yes,
all right.
Oh, go on.
Yes, you can use one. You can use one.
Right. Oh, thank you.
I leave it up to your usual good taste.
Well, just give people a chance to hear it. Then they'll say, God, I might go out and get that little book, and then and I have a second-hand one as well for you. Knockdown price.
Oh,
I'll do
Always
bootleg
answer
copies
the-
as well. Yeah.
Oh, I always answer to eBay. Yeah.
Ah, sure.
For
That's
goodness
it.
sake.
Anyway.
Anyway.
What are your plans for the
for
week?
good
Any
cause.
plans for the weekend, Mr. Ford, or what do you want to do? Or-
No, believe it or not, I'm back in the garden. I am now planting roses, and I'm waiting on two bare root roses to arrive, and then I'm going to. I have dug up, and I have put compost down and manure down, and I'm just going to dig up again tomorrow. But it all depends on the weather.
Yes.
You see, I'm a victim of that.
Yeah, the West Wing finished, I take it.
Oh, the West Wing's finished,
Right.
and now I shall move tentatively into the East Wing and do the ceilings there.
Speaking of,
It's a great feeling of achievement.
hi, Ford's version of the Sistine Chapel. Is everyone looking?
That's
I can
it,
imagine.
exactly.
I can imagine.
Exactly.
Because I could just imagine just lying in your bedroom and looking up at all these.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I can imagine.
It's just beyond belief,
That's all it was.
I remember we were in the Sistine Chapel a number of years ago, and my little daughter, she was the youngest at the time, you were crammed in. And at both ends of the Sistine Chapel, all you could hear was, no photographs, no photographs. So that was Jenny's cue to take photographs.
Yes.
And anyway, the horror wee toot of a thing,
Yeah.
and of course the camera was the flash was going on and off,
Yes.
and this poor carabinieri or whatever, no photographs, no, him roaring and shouting at her.
Oh,
Oh, mind you, the photographs were dreadful. She just got the back of people's heads, but she defied the Vatican.
And she did what her father told her to do: take photographs, didn't she? I blame the wee girl. Oh, so we go.
I was in West Virginia. I know about 2005, and I was at a concert in a college, and there were people I knew were playing on the stage. They were doing an old Victorian song that I liked, and I thought I would take a photograph. And of course, you were told at the start, no photographs, please. And I thought, this is just like a college hall. I'm not exactly the press. And I took a photograph. And about 2 minutes later, this brown claw grabbed my wrist. Well, he said, no photographs. And I thought she was going to take the camera off me. And I had worked with the lady all week. She went and did photocopying for me or whatever. But I'm telling once, give somebody a uniform and give them a rule. And dare anybody break the rule, I saw a completely different side to her. A chill went down my spine.
Yes. Well, when you apply that in your own teaching career as well, sure. Yeah. As your past pupils will testify, yes.
Oh, yes. Any past pupils out there? Buy the book, buy the book, buy the book.
Yes. Yes, get a pension. Work hard and get a pension.
That's the only way. Get the job with a pension. For goodness sake. Oh, no. Very lucky.
Anyway.
Well, I look forward to hearing Seamus.
Yes, we shall play with that. And for Christmas, Declan, I've been going through something, and maybe Christmas Day or some way before it, I have a nice interview with the late Joe Given, who was the sacristan in the Sacred Heart Church. We might try and do that for Christmas, and then maybe a Christmas Day or Boxing Day. We had the very last concert ever was done in the old town hall. That's a bit of a thought for that, maybe. But hopefully you'll be down. Maybe let's hope this...
as my old friend Doris Day would have said, que sera, sera.
And whatever will be, will be.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, but sure, it is what it is. As you say, I think we are pretty much coming to some light at the end of the tunnel at this stage,
Yeah.
As long as it's not another train coming towards us, but let's hope. But I think we're getting through it, and I think we...
we will, sorry. We'll be glad for goodness sake.
Anyway, good folks, we'll chat to you on next week. All the well, Mr. Ford. Enjoy yourself in the garden and look after the roses.
I can't wait. All the best.
Okay. We'll leave you with the late and great Seamus Gallagher, recalling his memories of growing up in Omagh. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you again now. Bye-bye.
Major Ray was married to a daughter of Dr. Thompson's. I'm sure you've heard of Dr. Thompson. He was a great cyclist. He spent his whole time cycling around Omagh. A retired major, well-known gentleman around town.
Was he from Omagh originally then?
That I can't tell you, but I shouldn't think so. His wife, of course, was from Omagh. I suppose that's why they settled here. But where he came from, I don't know. He had two daughters and a son. I think they're both still alive, but where they are, I don't know. Well, his daughter lives in County Down, someplace. She married a man here called White, who's since died. Then you had Mrs. Michael Henney. You got her, I'm sure. She on a guest house. Bankers, all the bank chaps in the town stayed with her. She's a very successful and very popular house. Teachers as well. There's a man, Lyons, a dentist, lived next door to her many years ago. And you had people the name of Rule, who lived in the last house there just at the entry. Mr. Rule was in one of the banks, and he married a lady. She would have been a daughter of Frank Crawford's of Crawford and Wilson, a sister of the late Eva Crawford, whom I'm sure you've possibly heard of too. That would bring you on to here. Now next door here, there used to be a Dr. Todd lived in it many years ago. Then there's a Captain Porter. And lastly, Mr. Lewis, who was a retired policeman. He had two daughters. One of them was assistant out in Corniary School. Principal of the school was Mrs. Curry. You probably heard of her husband who taught my brothers. And that brings you to our house. We are here since 1914. Then we have the Bank of Ireland. An interesting thing about the Bank of Ireland, they had employed the first lady official in Omagh, Miss Dugan, and she married one of the officials in the bank, a chap called Morris Barr, and they were both transferred to Derry, and that's the last I heard of them.
So that was the bank manager's house?
The bank manager there. Of course I could list you all the bank managers, probably not interested, more or less.
Where the car park is now, at the entry?
That at the bottom of the entry, yeah.
What was there?
Well, it was part of my garden and part of the garden next door and part of the Bank of Ireland and the dentist garden.
So the gardens went right back to the river?
We went back, not to the living, but as far as the caterpillars there.
Oh, right, sorry, right. Right.
Okay. You with me now?
Yeah, I'm with you now.
Now, at the far side of the street where the British Legion is, lived a Mr. McAdam. And he was senior partner in McAdam and Bates. His daughter Nora joined the army, and she came back here and she was the first lady to drive a car in Omagh, Nora McAdam. She was principal of Clonabogan School. She retired from that and she died. You go up to the next house there with Charlie. You come to McNeil's egg store and the bonded stores, which we talked about. After that, you'd have Charlie O'Donnell, who was assistant postmaster. He lived there all his life. Died about 4 or 5 years ago in his early 90s. Next door to him would have been Jim Cook, who was also in the post office. And there was Patsy Bradley, and there was the Hamiltons. James Hamilton, a well-known law clerk in the town, I'm sure you know, with McConnell at Fife. Then you had Harry Torney lived in the next block. You heard all about Harry, I'm sure. Keen motorist and a keen golfer. Excellent craftsman. He served his time in White's Garage, which was situated where the present C.A. Anderson's is. You had Ingram's lived beside Torney's. You probably knew Ingram, who was a policeman here in the town. He's retired now. His wife is one of the traffic wardens, Mrs. Ingram. And then at the last house there, before you came to Cherry McAleer's, you had John Corneen. John Corneen married a lady called Miss Rock, whose brother was a very prominent eye specialist in Derry, Dr. Rock. He's buried here in Killyclogher. They were an old Killyclogher family. Then of course you come to McAleer's pub.
Was there always a pub there?
Always, since I remember. The present owners, the first owner that I remember is Peter McAleer. He died and was taken over then by his son Charlie. And then of course Eugene Boyle and Charlie's son, I think, or I don't know what the tie-up is, but there's something there. Then he went to McConnell's butcher shop, which is now Wilton's. Jack Martin, an electrical shop there. Going further back than that, then Devlin's had 3 shops there. They had a grocery shop, and they had a pub, and they did funeral undertaking. You know, Mary's shop there along that, you had them. A man called Fullerton, who was a nurse out in the Tyrone from Fermanagh Hospital, he lived in the last house in that block. On the other side of the street, starting up here past the Bank of Ireland, you had Glasses. That's going back a long time. You had Fallow's monumental sculptor business. His headstones, I'm sure any graveyard you would visit around this area, you would see Fallow's name on them. He did a very big business there. He died, and it was turned into a nursing home then, run by people named Ward. And they gave that up, and Liam McCluskey then bought it, and he ran a dental practice there, which was subsequently taken over by his son John, who died a few years ago. not too clear who lived. He come to Armstrong's shop now, Armstrong's grocery shop. You probably heard of it. It's not, you would remember it probably.
Right.
The other side of the entry, there was people in the name of Conway had a pub there. None of his relatives are around here at the present, as far as I know. Might be grandchildren around, I'm not sure. Then you had Ward, the monumental sculptor. He was based in Derry, but he had a branch business here where the paper decor there.
Home decor, said it?
Home decor. Next, that was Ward, the sculptor there. He got flooded out of it one time and he got fed up and gave it up. At the bridge, you had a man called Jack McCann, who was a plumber. He lived there. You'd probably know his daughter was married to Jackie Martin. Probably know. Over the bridge, you'd have come to Wiley's Cafe. Next to that would have been Boyd's confectionery shop. And then you would have had Fair's boot shop, taken over by Bud Jackson, who married one of the Boyds. You'd come down to the entry to the market yard, and Mullen's pub was there. And after that you had Charlie Mills' confectionery shop, taken over by Mrs. Bonner and her sister. After that you had a little shoe shop run by people in the name of Nixon, who resided in Campsie Crescent. And then you had Sheffield's jewellery shop, run by Mrs. Sheffield and her son Willis. And after that, at the Dublin Road corner, you had the arcade, which you probably all heard of. Very successful drapery business. Across the street, you would have had McCluskey's licensed premises. Bernard McCluskey, father of Leo the dentist. And then you had G.B. Anderson's large drapery store. Next to it you had a smaller gents outfitters. And next to that you had Nardone's ice cream saloon. That was one of the big novelties. You went in and sat down there and had your ice cream, pears or whatever you got. I think after that you had Tom McClare's drapery shop. And then you had Keenan's butcher shop, of course. Anthony Keenan still resides out at Father Enda, who's now retired. Then you had Garrig's pub, and after that you had Harvey McGraw's. Now next door to it would have been the county cinema, I suppose, would it? Or was it?
It was Cosgrove's pub there. It's up the garage.
Cosgrove was he took over Garrig's, you're quite right.
You had Loves.
You had Loves, Miss Loves drapery, that's right. His daughter still resides around at Irish Town. They had the county cinema, of course. I can't remember what was there before the county cinema.
There's a garage there.
McGraw's garage, quite right. McGraw's garage. Mrs. McGraw still resides out in our parish. And then you had
The YMCA.
YMCA. That finished that block. Now, next to that you had Macmillan's drapery business, ladies' outfitters. After that you had Waterson's coal business. That gave a lot of employment in the town. The Trona from Anna Hospital ran all their boilers and coal. The wagons of coal used to come into the station, and a couple of days there would have been a string of horses and carts out delivering this coal to the Trona from Anna Hospital. It's now the Abbey Insurance Company. Then, of course, you had Dick Matthews' fruit and confectionery shop, and at the back of it, another ice cream parlour.
Did Matthews run that?
He did indeed. He was a Dundalk man. Himself and his wife ran it. Mrs. Eddie O'Neill used to, one of the ladies that worked in the saloon, she and her sister, she still resides at Woodville Avenue. I think that would bring me to Steele's bicycle shop. And then the Royal Arms Hotel, which was Porter's, owned by Porter's, and who owned the picture house behind it.
Was that Miller's picture house?
Miller's picture house, King Miller's.
Was that where the ballroom is in the Royal Arms now?
Yeah, that's right. And the Royal Arms Hotel, it was managed by Miss McGurk, who still resides out there opposite the health centre. She was a manageress there for a long time. The owner of the place finished up a Dr. Miller, who practiced in Newton Ards. And I used to call on him, and we used to have great conversations about Omagh and the hotel and the people that used to stay in it. It was unique in a way that they had a special room set out for commercial travellers. And there was a special waitress attended to them, and the senior commercial traveller sat at the top of the table, and he did the carving, and this is where they all...
So there was a hierarchy?
Oh, okay, that's right. Then that would bring me to Frank O'Kane's, which was a licensed premises as well. Very successful business done there. And that would take you to the post office, I think, wouldn't it?
It was all pub up the other side of the road.
Oh, and Michael O'Kane's.
Manual bar.
Was it always a licensed premise? It was there.
Well, yes, McGill's, of course. The Ulster Hotel. That was the Ulster Hotel run by a family named McGill, who had been an uncle of John McGill, the town clerk.
On the site of M.J. O'Kane's?
On the site of M.J. O'Kane's. They had an hotel there. Very popular hotel for representatives too. Small, but very good hotel. The last of that family died over in England. He was very high up in the British Civil Service. Died there just about a year ago. That's the last of that family. Then you come to the post office, which was also an hotel in the state of White Hart Hotel. Now the post office.
I think the post office, was it built in 1961?
I think so, yeah.
Well, then, did the hotel function until then, or had it closed?
Well, it's a different site now. We're past the hotel now. The hotel is still a pub.
Oh, right.
It's Michael O'Kane's pub.
And then, where the post office is now, then, what was there?
Now, going back a good bit, it was the White Hart Hotel.
Right. On that site?
On that site where the post office is, and round the corner, that was the White Hart Hotel.
Was there laundry about there, Seamus?
There was a laundry down the entry there, owned by Vincent Monaghan. And that would bring you up to the corner of, that was Roy Holmes' office. Roy Holmes, an auctioneer, well-known auctioneer, estate agent in the town.
And then there's an empty space between that and Pat Fahey's. What was there where they parked the cars now? Just around the corner. Turned on to John Street.
Pat Fahey's house office was a private house. An architect called Joe McGrew lived in it. And subsequently, Frank Millen, the vet, and his wife and family lived in it. I should remember what was there now, and I can't. Art Kelly had a chemist shop, stuck there, can't remember what. That's there.
If you could go back to Kempsey here,
right,
and talk about the bonding house, Seamus,
yeah,
and you mentioned the man with the creamery and the milk.
Yeah.
The wee slogan he had as well.
Right. You can whip our cream, but you can't beat our milk. That was his slogan on his van.
Who was that, Eddie?
George Beattie.
Right.
His two daughters lived down there in Irish Town still. He was a very successful dairy farmer and lived down there where Caterpillars is now.
Oh, he had his farm down there?
He kept his cows down there and did all the milking and everything down there.
The Cozy Corner?
Cozy Corner.
Was there always a pub on that site?
There was. It was run by owned by Mrs. McNamee, and she had a grocery shop, a little drapery shop beside it. She had a grocery shop there and a pub, which her brother, who was Joe Campbell, he ran that. Then you had Carlin's paper shop. An interesting thing about Carlin's paper shop is it was the site of the first RIC barrack in Omagh. And if you have a pair of binoculars and just look at the spouting, you can see the old crest.
That's right, still there, still
there. After that, you had McElroy's. The McElroy's ran drapery business.
Army surplus as well, is it?
Army surplus. And they also went round the fairs. That stands at the various fairs around the county. It's now run by one of the daughters as a shoe shop there. As I say, next door to that is Carlin's. Now, you're going to stick me here. We're in McCrae's public house. Came in there. It was taken over by the electricity board, I would say. It's part of it. And also Garrity's hardware. They had a big hardware business there, Garrity's.
Was that the same family that had the pub?
Yeah, same family. Very successful business there, but when he died, none of the family were interested, I think, just. Now we come then to McMenamin's pub, which is now Patsy Bogan's. Past that entry then, I think you would have been coming to Crawford and Wilson's. Crawford and Wilson's is a very big store there, hardware. And then they also had a place called Connell's, which they also owned, but it was a stationery and paper. You did newspapers and newsagents and stationery. After that, I think you would have come to another licensed premises then owned by a man called Brian McGill, who lived out at, you heard of it, did you? I forget who the previous owner was, I forget his name now.
The Bear's Paw?
Yeah, the Bear's Paw, that's right. And then you came past that, I think you would have been coming, you would have come to Kirkpatrick's paper shop and newsagents and stationery. Then you would be at Pollock's grocery shop. And after that you would have had Bloomfield's drapery. And you would have had Donnelly's drapery next to them, subsequently taken over by O'Reilly's. And that would bring you then to the corner.
Did the Cafe Rex come in between there?
Cafe Rex would have come in there. It would have come in before the drapery shops, you're quite right.
Who owned the Cafe Rex?
Battisti's, Peter Battisti, you know. His people owned it. They were bombed out and they never went into it afterwards. That will bring you to McDermott's chemist shop. Crawford and Crawford's, missed them on our way up. They had a drapery business, gents outfitters on the way up. They were originally at that corner and moved up to bigger premises further down Market Street. On the other side of the Bridge Street you had a confectionery shop owned by Joseph Nugent.
That's where the estate agent is now?
Where the estate agent is, that's right.
That's Lennis's uncle.
That's right. Told you about it before.
We were talking about that.
Yeah. Then you had Michael Gallagher's grocery business after that. It's very interesting. That building is comparatively new. I was shown a photograph of a meeting, an anti-home rule meeting on the Courthouse Hill, and it came right down as far as Bridge Street Corner. And that building, which is now Smarty Pants, I think, that was a thatched cottage in that year. But next door to it was Jerry Mullen's grocery shop, which is then, as it is now, it's now a sports shop. And after that you'd have come to Swan and Mitchell's shoe shop, which is now Taylor's. And then after that you came to the Home and Colonial, they had which is now Halifax Building Society. They had a business there, the Home Colonial. Never heard of them, I suppose.
Oh, I did indeed.
Did you?
Yes.
They had a business there. And after that, of course, they had the post office.
The Home Colonial, were they part of, I suppose, a chain store?
They would have been, yeah.
They were an English firm.
That's right. Did quite a good business, but they disappeared for some reason or other, I don't know. So that would bring you to the town hall then. And after the town hall you have the Ulster Bank. And you have the county club, of course. And then you have Munster Bank. They enlarged and took in the Melville Hotel, which used to be, you probably heard of it. Would you remember it?
Very well.
Ah, we did that, the Melville Hotel there. And
That had been the RAC barracks at one stage.
it was. That's right. Remember it well there. UC Bank. Aye.
And Broderick's then.
Projects, that's right.
Probably then took it over.
So you're going into where Dublin's was, that used to be Boyce's confectionery shop. And then next door to that you had Gorman's paper shop taken over by Sergeant Ryan.
Oh, yeah, and then Colton's.
That's right. He was a sergeant here in London, retired.
Well, you had mentioned there about going to the Christian Brothers. Can you remember what conditions were like when you were in school? Can you talk us through maybe some of the teachers that taught you, any people that would stand out?
Well, lay teachers, we had a man called Gormley, and we had James Gunn. Those were the lay teachers, but there was a Brother Cloak, and Brother Walker, Brother Doyle, Brother Hammond, which I'm sure you've all heard of. The classrooms were reasonably good, and comfortable. Upstairs you had the secondary school, who went up the flight of iron stairs at the outside. And we had the two Brother Burkes there in my time, Brother Edmund Burke and Brother, I forget the other man's name, two Brother Burkes. You had Mr. Curry, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. McLaughlin, Mr. Shannon, and that was them all.
Well, did Brother Hamill then be involved in his choirs?
I was.
Right.
I was very proud of that, you know.
Well then, would many of the local schools enter for local festival and that?
Not in my time. No. Not that I remembered anyway.
Right. Somebody else we had interviewed had said about the way that they utilised the camp for PE and for physical education. Can't remember that wasn't in.
Not in my day. We did woodwork in the old church in Brook Street. It was the church that before the Sacred Heart Church was built. It was called the Church of St. Peter and Paul. It's on the site of the present Christian Brothers Primary School.
Was it a big building?
It was. Not nearly as big as the present. There was no spires or anything, you know. It was an old building. But we went down there on a Saturday for a half day for woodwork, taught by Brother Burke.
And it was laid out as in classroom fashion then?
Ach no, it wasn't. No, it was just a huge big room. Just
shell,
yeah.
Shell. No stained glass windows or anything like that?
No, there wasn't plain glass. My recollection is that it was plain glass.
Do you remember the mail train coming in?
Oh yeah, that was a big event. Go in, go out. People used to go out and see it come in and see it out, you know. had to be pushed out with another engine. You just pulled with one engine and pushed to another one. It couldn't get up the slope. But there's a solicitor in town here, Norman Holland. Norman Holland originally owned the house that's now St. Joseph's Hall. And he met and saw out every mail train every day of the week. That was his hobby.
What time would the mail train come in?
5 o'clock.
In the morning?
No, evening.
In the
Afternoon. When there was the mail train. Go up the Crumb Road, you know, and up 6 Mile Cross. There's a big incline there, you know. And it had to get the engine to push it out. It left it up as far as Carrickmore, I think, or something. Then.
Well, then when the mail train came, the post and the letters, parcels were unloaded, and then they were taken.
McGinn had the contract for doing the mails. Jack McGinn, his uncle first had it. They met to took all the mails from the station, and they brought the mails to the outlying post offices like Town, Irvinstown, Dromore, Fenton, and all these places. So Jack McGinn's uncle and father, his uncle and father had the contract for that.
And then the mail would be sorted out in each
About
office.
so. I don't know, the sorting's done on their own probably.
Right.
But in the old post office there was a big basket and the parcels were all thrown in there, you know. We had a nice wee office, but wouldn't, even when it's there at present, it's too small.
Right. So, where was the post office in Omagh before the new post office was
Down Sides Farm, it was next door to the Halifax Building Society, you know that red building there?
Mm-hmm.
That was the post office.
What were conditions like? What was it like?
Oh, it was a nice office. Good office, well kept and calm, but too small. You see, when I'm talking about, the time that I'm talking about, the population in Omagh was 5,500 when I was going to school. It's now up on 23, I think. So it's a different time now than what we're talking about now.
Well then, what were the hours in the post office? When did it open its doors to the public, and when did it close? And then what were done behind the scenes to prepare it and to get everything ready?
Well, it opened at 5:30 and closed at 6. It opened at 8:30 and closed at 6, if I remember rightly. But then there was somebody on all night, you see, sorting the mail, and there was a night staff.
Right. So 24 hours a day?
Yeah. I suppose there's still a night staff.
Well, did the post office sell products the way that you
No, that's a new thing.
That's a recent thing. Right.
All the solar stamps, the postal orders,
That's right.
telegrams. I earned my first money from the post office.
Mm-hmm.
I was stopped one day going up by Frank McCrory, the man I forgot to tell you was in the post office. Frank was standing at the post office door and he called me in and he asked me would I do a wee job for him. So I said certainly, and he asked me to deliver a telegram to McDonald's fish shop. So I duly got the telegram and delivered it. A few days after I was going up and he happened to see me again and he called me in and he says, I want you to sign a form. He says, you get a fee for delivering this telegram. So I said, this is on the money today. So I got a penny hit me for delivering the telegram. I told that to Frank there not so many years ago. He laughed at it.
He was a great songwriter.
He was.
Right.
A great musician altogether.
Well, when he was working, did he bring that musical interest to his work,
Well, I don't know about his work, but he was always associated with St. Eugene's band, as you know.
Right. And he wrote songs for the pantos.
That's right.
I heard his version of When You and I Were Young, Maggie, the Omagh version.
That's
Absolutely beautiful.
That's right.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Ben Kelly had worked for the post office.
But I don't know, we were talking about that before you came in. Remember Ben?
Right. Well, what did he do, or how long did he last with the post
Well, it wasn't very long. I remember him emptying the mailbox, you know, up at the post office.
Can you remember the postman?
I could remember some of them. The last surviving postman was in the General Hospital at the moment. A chap called William McCluskey. And I think he's over 90 now, I think. But still still talk about the post office. He and Peg McGuigan would be the last surviving members of the old post office. The man that used to deliver this area here, he was in this for years, was a man called Somerville. Do you remember Jack Somerville, the barber? He would have been his father. He was postman here. And then there was Friedel, postman. He would be, I think, possibly the grandfather of Paddy Friedel. There's a man called Quinn from O'Connor Terrace. And there was a man from Campsie Avenue. Quinn again, he was the senior postman. He was the head postman. James Quinn. Lived in Campsie. I've lived to be over 90 too.
Well then, how many postmen would have been allocated to the town of Omagh? What kind of an area would they each have to cover?
Well, Somerville, as far as I remember, would have done this area and the part of the Killyclogher Road and part of the Hospital Road. Right down, from... But there was few houses to do in those days, you see, as compared to now. Then they had motor bicycles. They used to... They had cycles first, and then they graduated to motor bicycles.
Right.
And then eventually they got vans. We all went up to Belfast one time to collect their vans. And a lot of them had never been in Belfast, you see, and they were worried about getting home. It was dark. So a man called Frank Tisney was the chief engineer. So he told them to follow the red light. You know what chaos that caused. They were up to 4 o'clock in the morning waiting for some of the postmen to come home.
Well, we had a great interview with Joe Moore. And
Joe was another postman, of course. He would have told you a lot of them, did he? Did you remember them?
He mentioned a few.
It's hard to remember them, you know.
Yeah.
And Joe would be a fairly aged now too, you know.
He's 79.
Willie McCluskey is very old. He did the country, he did Pembridge in that area, you know.
It's quite a distance to have to travel then.
Aye, we did it in a motorbike, and then eventually, as I say, they had vans.
And the, areas like the Plum and that, they would have had the mail every day?
They would, oh aye. Sometimes they'd be out for a few days, you see, if they were caught in snow or something, they would have been marooned and stay over a night or two, they'd be missing.
It's the memory of an old Christmas card. There's an old Christmas card in an old dusty trunk. And
I'll tell you a story of when I lived in Uri on the Christmas a lifetime ago. We got up in the morning as the daylight was yawning on rooftops dappled with snow, crammed into the seats of a grey hillman estate which spluttered across Curry Square. We were parcelled for church in our brine island shirts, with the brill cream glistening our hair. Wedged between new Sunday best and the crimpling dressed, we jostled and tripped down the aisle, between beeswax smells and Christmas bells, we were wreathed in Christmas Day smiles. We'd return home to play in the living room haze of Gallagher green cigarettes, where the Christmas tree lights were hiccuping bright beside our old hi-fi set. It was cream and light red, and it clicked and it whirred, its slow motion arm in the air. The black vinyl dripped down and pirouetted around as my father tapped time on his chair. We were warm and content, and that evening was spent in a Jim Reeves Christmas again. We knew most of the words, and we'd all hum along. Christmas just wasn't Christmas without a Jim Reeves Christmas song.
Christmas cheer. It's the memory of an old Christmas card.
as many's a gay night, from dark till daylight, I spend with people of high renown. But in all their grandeur and heaps to squander, my heart would wander for Sweet Omagh Town.